ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. We are actually recording on Mother's Day today, so shout out to all the moms out there, just not the anime moms, because the anime moms are usually terrible. If they're still alive, unfortunately, but
Shout out to the good anime moms, all like 4 of them.
Erased.
If they have a side ponytail, they're definitely dead.
yes.
Clear haired. Fire Emblem.
Yeah, what other good moms are there that aren't dead in anime? We said Erased.
There's Erased, there's Deku's mom in My Hero Academia. She's
Yep, that's a good one.
Pretty good anime mom.
I'm sure if I had the time to think about it, I could come up with a list. But
It's not
off
a
the
deep
top of my
bench.
head, I got nothing.
Luluko's mom is simultaneously the worst,
She's not
The
a
best.
good mom.
the best anime mom.
What was her name again?
Space pirate something.
Space Pirate Empress something.
Yeah, something like that.
Light speed something.
Lalako Godspeed.
Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. Hell of a name.
Space Pirate Empress Lalako Godspeed or something. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a good name, but not a good mom. Anyway, yeah, so we are about halfway through the spring 2020 season here already. Surprisingly, after all the doom and gloom we were predicting last episode, most of the shows that we were watching are still running for now. And some have actually completed, but we'll get to that in a second. Before we dive into all that, let's just introduce everybody. I'm Jel, and we're joined as always by Iro.
I'm still here. Not dead yet.
Yes, thankfully. And G.
What's good, y'all?
And Artemis.
Hey, also not dead. Very surprisingly.
Thankfully, yes. We're all still here. Yeah, so, like I said, some shows have actually... We talked about last time shows that were being canceled due to the current COVID-19 situation. But in the meantime, since last episode, we've also had announcements for shows that are supposedly finished since we last spoke. And actually, I'll link this in the notes, but Anime News Network has been keeping a list of shows that are confirmed completed productions.
Yeah.
But we already knew about the My Next Life as a Villainess is complete, and they announced that and B&A of course ended up dropping the rest of their episodes. I think that was a question mark, but we'll have words for B&A here shortly. But that did finish. The rest of the series dropped on Netflix this week. Was it this week?
Sure. Last week, this week.
Who knows? Nobody has any concept of time anymore. But yeah, so they also confirmed was Sing Yesterday for Me is confirmed complete production, and
So
Arte,
Yeah.
if anybody is still watching that. But that
Oh,
is,
good. I was
So-
so worried about Arte.
So in our best anime of spring season discussion, only counting shows that are complete, that's those are our options so far. We'll see if other shows make it. Interestingly, they said some shows are close to being done, so there's a question mark. So, like, for example, Kaguya-sama Love is War, they said there's only a little bit left to do, so they're trying to finish it, so that might make it. But yeah, that situation continues to develop. I think we were all starting to say last time that it's really going to be next season. I think that's going to get hit really hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
shows
Probably.
that should be in production right now, or should have started production, a couple weeks ago for next season.
Yeah, the nature of pre-production means that I think we will see a lot of delays or outright cancellations of shows next season, just because, yeah, as you say, the work for them ideally would be starting around now, but
Yeah, if not sooner. At some time during the peak stay-at-home orders, right? But we shall see.
Indeed.
All right. So let's get into shows we actually are watching, or in this case, maybe let's start with a combination here of game and anime. We've been talking about the Sakura Wars anime that's been airing this season.
Mm-hmm.
And just for a little context, the game that the anime is
A sequel to.
Did come out in Japan, I think, like 6 months ago or so. So from that perspective, people watching the anime in theory would have played the game. But for people outside of Japan, the game was not released until just this past week, or maybe the week before. I don't know. Again, time, nobody knows what's going on. But since our last episode, the game has come out. The I wouldn't call it a reboot, but it is a
Soft
new game.
reboot.
I think it's fair to call it a soft reboot. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely intended to be kind of a new starting point for both old players and new players alike.
Like it's not retconning any plot or redoing the main plot or from the old games or anything, but it is kind of like easing everyone back in since it's been 15 years since the last game. And I get the impression I'm probably enjoying the game more than you guys are enjoying the anime.
I would say that's accurate, probably.
That sounds right. We're counting on you to fill in the holes in our knowledge of the content.
Yeah, so from the game perspective, I would, like, if there's a such thing as objectively judging a video game, I would not objectively call Sakura Wars games good. But they have a certain janky JRPG charm to them, I suppose. They are mostly dating sim more so than RPG, and actually this new game, I don't even know if there is any RPG to it at all, because they replaced the gameplay with like action stuff. But if you're in that kind of mood for, it feels like a PS2 era, like B-tier JRPG type of wacky, colorful anime nonsense type of thing, which I think you guys are at least getting some of that in the anime, right?
Sure.
Don't be too enthusiastic about it, but the
If you say so.
yeah,
I'll try to contain my enthusiasm.
yeah, I do feel like, and I'm holding off on watching the anime because you guys are telling me it's like supposed to be after the game, right? So on the off chance that there might be some kind of spoiler or something, I have not been watching it. So
Yeah, I mean, should we just get into it? Or
Yeah, I mean, why not?
did something happen this past?
No, it's not that anything specifically happened to this specific like set of episodes. I think it's just more as Iro and I begin to like learn more and more about the Sakura Wars franchise, and specifically the like the circumstances around this new one, and also known as Shin Sakura Wars. The more we began to realize that the currently airing anime might be one of the first examples of like cross-media post-game DLC.
That's kind of how it feels, because like they're bringing up stuff to do with side characters that, to my knowledge, were open questions by the end of the game of like, what's the deal with this person? And it seems as though the anime is going to explore some of those things.
Yeah.
Like it's doing stuff to flesh out other characters who maybe didn't get a ton of spotlight in the actual game. And this means it's a very odd to watch, devoid of context.
Yeah, I mean, it gives a little context to, I think, our complaints we had in the prior podcast about how there were certain story developments in Sakura Wars, the animation, that felt like things that should have been in the game. Like, I don't mean like very high-minded concepts. I mean basic story-building elements that you would have assumed would have been addressed in like the first half of the video game, and not in what is ostensibly a sequel that has taken place after the big climax of the source material. You know, there are character subplots that feel like shouldn't this have been like character development in the video game and not something you reserved for the sequel?
Yeah. I know we touched on that a little bit, and I found it interesting because actually playing the game, I feel like the characters were like, I don't know if it's unintentional or what, but like the characters were different than what they're supposed to be characterized as. Because like we were talking about how like the hot-blooded girl, I can't even remember her name right now.
Hatsuho.
Hatsuho.
Yeah, Hatsuho, and like you guys were saying in the anime how she was having her crisis of confidence or whatever. That was one of the examples you were giving of things that should have happened in the game. Now, to be fair, I'm only still, I think, in chapter 3 or something in the game, so I'm not super far in. But, like, so far she's been, like, the more level-headed, cautious one, and Sakura, the main girl, has been the hot-headed, giving speeches about her blade burning with fiery passion type of character.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just, like, uneven characterization or if that's some kind of intentional flip or something, because in the game too, like Hatsuho literally says, "I'm the hot-blooded one," like she says that sentence.
So she says that, but then the character development is contrary.
Yeah. And then she's the one that's like, "I don't know, guys, I don't think we should just rush in like that." I'm like, that doesn't seem right.
That's like her entire personality in the anime is, "I'm gonna go first."
Yeah, which if they're trying to like, I don't know, subvert that, that's kind of interesting, I guess. But I get the impression that it's just uneven writing.
Right. So that is kind of what gets into I think what our issue is with the anime that we're starting to hash out is Sakura Wars is not a particularly, intelligent or nuanced franchise. I don't think anyone is expecting that, right?
What?
This is a show about acting troupes that put on musical plays and then at night fight demons with their steampunk mechs. Right.
So excuse me for not having a better understanding of the political nuances of the Sakura Wars universe. But no, my point is like we have always like understood that it is like big dumb entertainment, and as we have shown, as we have like made clear time and time again, we love that, like time and time again. But I think so. I was talking about this in our Discord, and I think the conclusion I arrived at, and that is the issue with Sakura Wars, is that if I were to describe, say, some of Trigger's best works, like, your Promares or your Kill the Kills and such, or to compare to other works like your Double Deckers, things we have talked about and have enjoyed in the past, or, even something like Adoro Hidoro, we might call shows like that dumb. And we would say that in a very affectionate way. We would say, that dumbass show. The way I would describe Sakura Wars in contrast to that is I would describe Sakura Wars as unintelligent.
That might
pretty
be
damning
fair.
there.
Like, it's stupid, but I can't tell if it is being intentionally written to be stupid in the way many of the other works I just described are, or if it's stupid because the writers are just literally not very good at their jobs. And the vibe I'm beginning to get is it might be more that than the former with Sakura Wars. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there is some intentional camp and spectacle to it all, of course.
Of course.
But
it's not
maybe not as much as you would think.
Right, like there's not enough like self-aware wit to it. Like, again, to bring up something like Double Decker, which is what I'd say the perfect example of a very stupid show written by very smart people. It's intentionally very dumb. The characters are idiots, but it's written by people with a very good understanding of character dynamics and comedic timing and like foreshadowing in ways that I don't think Sakura Wars is. And so there are things that are being foreshadowed right now that I think anyone here would look at that and you'd be like, oh, this is clearly a setup for like a really cool, awesome, dumb fan service satisfying moment later in the series, right? Like, obviously they're going to do this cool thing, because why else would you set up this character dynamic this way? But the problem is, I'm not even confident enough Sakura Wars has
chops to do it.
Yeah, the self-awareness to do it. And that's a weird feeling to have for a show that is obviously meant to just be, like, not shallow, but, like, it's meant to be entertainment foremost. But it might not even be smart enough to be good entertainment.
Yeah,
Ouch.
I will say, because I am enjoying the game, and I think maybe that the format lends itself better to, having more dialogue and longer time to spend with the characters and everything helps. But also, the premise of the anime, they're fighting to save the world or some world-ending event or something, right? Is it that what's happening? I don't know what the actual plot is of the anime.
Seems to be demons and the
We're
Russians.
taking care of this MacGuffin girl.
Okay. Well, the plot of the game so far is that the player character shows up at the Imperial Combat Review, as they're called, combat reviews, and which is like the one from the first game, but now everybody's gone and it's all run down and beat up, and you have to save the show by putting on a good play and joining the Imperial Combat, or not Imperial, the International Combat Review Olympics. Where you're going to have to battle out the other combat reviews from around the world.
It's some G Gundam shit.
Yes, and battle them in both putting on a play and also in combat, which is such a ridiculously stupid idea that it's pretty great.
Right, that sounds like a little more interesting.
And that sounds a lot more fun to me than whatever you guys have been saying has been going on in the anime. So, maybe that's part of why I'm enjoying the game so far, but I am still pretty early into it. I imagine something more serious is going to happen after the Olympics, but we'll see.
All I'm picturing now, because I know nothing about the anime or the game, is like if Eurovision was plays instead of singing and they had mecha.
Yes,
You know-
that's pretty much what they're going for.
Sounds alright.
Yeah, that's about. Yeah, so I mean that sounds great to me, right? So,
I would see if that was an anime. I would watch it.
That's actually another interesting thing, right? Like, the anime has made almost zero mention of the other combat reviews, and so that's another thing that makes me wonder, like, is that a big deal in the video games? Because in the anime, they don't seem to exist anymore.
yeah,
so...
well, at least in this one it is, because I've already met like 5 of them or something that are all going to be fighting it out in this Olympics thing, and there's like a
Sure.
ton of other characters and stuff. So
I guess I just mean, like, plot-wise, do they just fall off the face of the planet after the events of the
well,
game?
I don't know
Probably
how.
go home
Yeah, maybe
to Berlin.
I'm
Shanghai,
assuming
et cetera.
something bad is going to happen at the end of this, and that's going to make it so we have to save the world. But currently, that is the main focus of the game, and it's pretty amusing, just in how like ridiculous it is. But yeah, I think I will keep playing it, and we'll probably check in later. And depending on my feelings at the end, maybe I'll check out the anime just to see what.
I think for better or
happens,
worse,
but-
Jill, I think you are the person who probably should eventually get around to watching the anime, as one of the only people in our social circle who has actually bothered with the video games. So
Yeah.
I feel like we just need to get your context on all of this, because, again, like, Eero and I are just in such a weird place with this show.
Yeah, we're
because
telling an incomplete story, right?
Yeah.
Where
like we are talking at each other from completely opposite directions,
Right.
and I'd be very curious how this all looks to somebody who has, come out the other end of what is, what, like a 30, 40, 50-hour video game.
Right. Yeah, so we'll check back in on that later. I'll probably give more detailed thoughts on the game, because I have some other thoughts about it, but in general I think they're maybe playing it a little too conservatively, but we can save that discussion for another day. Alright, so let's move along. Another thing I want to touch on is I caught up on BNA, Brand New Animal, in time to watch the new episodes that came out over the past week. So now the entire series is out on Netflix. I've watched the entire series now at this point. You guys are up to episode 8, you said?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So we'll save our full, I think, final thoughts on BNA. I think I just wanted to say a few things on my just general impressions, because I hadn't watched any of it since last episode. I think I mostly agree with you guys where I feel like it's kind of lacking something in the first half. I don't know, I was having trouble getting like too excited about it.
I mean, I think we say it time and time again. It is that like weird trigger, je ne sais quoi, right? Like that. The Yoshinari trigger works. I mean, I don't know. Go ahead, Jill.
Well, I was gonna say I couldn't quite put my finger, because like you said, the je ne sais quoi. I couldn't quite put my finger on it in the first half. I think the second half, the things I did not like explicitly became more crystal clear to me. Just speaking in general terms, I feel like I don't like the characters. I don't like the main girl. What? She kind of reminds me of. I felt a similar way about Akko in Little Witch Academia, but the difference with Akko is, one, she was literally a child, so I could kind of forgive her.
I'm not going to hear any bad words spoken about Akko.
And she actually had like a bit of a character arc to it, and she was surrounded by a lot of other charming characters that kind of helped balance her out, right? I don't feel like that's the case here in BNA, where the main character is kind of obnoxiously stubborn, in my opinion, and so is everybody else in the show. So I was kind of finding that all frustrating. And I just think, both thematically and plot-wise, it's kind of all over the place, and the pieces don't really go together. I could, looking back, I could see that in the first half, and I saw it even more in the second half, without getting specific on it. But it's just, nothing was coming together to get me, like, emotionally attached to the show at all. So like there's like these big flashy cool moments happening, and I'm like, I don't feel anything from them. It's like, it's cool. Like, if you guys saw episode 8, which has an amazing fight scene in it, right?
Yeah, we did see that.
It was a really cool fight, but I didn't like feel anything from it. Like, it was just like, so I don't know. It's I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts by the end of it, but I don't know if you have anything to comment on at the moment from up to where you are now.
I mean, well, okay, first things first. Episode 5 was pretty good, right?
Yes, but that was but that's the baseball episode, right?
Yeah, that's the baseball episode.
Yeah, that was great, but it was also not like the rest of the series.
Okay, good. So now that we've established that baseline for this conversation,
sure,
we can move forward with, like, yes, my like internal anguish about BNA and the state of Trigger in 2020. So the thing that, I think you have a lot of valid points, Jel, about Trigger. I mean, about BNA and like what it's maybe suffering from, and I think that a lot of my stuff kind of closely mirrors that, for better or worse. I think that, like, for better or worse, it's a case of like, Yoshinari is a very good animator, and I think he's a very good director, if, the Little Witch Academia OVAs are any indication. But I think that the realities of TV production have proven to be a bigger stumbling block for him than other directors in the Trigger stable. I think that, I wonder how much of this comes from the reality that, like, Yoshinari did not really start directing until Little Witch Academia, when comparatively, despite being of similar age and actually similar levels of experience, Imaishi started directing far earlier in his career.
Right.
And,
well, how much does Yoshinari have to do with the actual, like, plot? Like, he's not writing the stuff, though, right?
But that's the thing, is Nakashima is doing the writing for BNA, and the thing is that, like, I don't think Nakashima could be the weak link, because the Amaishi Nakashima combo is 3 for 3. Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, and Promare. Like,
Right.
it's... I would go as far as say it has literally never failed us. So, and again, I mean, I'm not trying to look for someone to blame here, but...
That's the difference, though, right?
Right.
If you're saying one of these is not like the other, that's the that's the difference.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's like it's and so here's the thing. Here's actually the actual thing I'm going to get at. And as far as I know, I think Iro and I are the only two in this podcast who have watched Promare. Is that correct?
yeah, I haven't.
Yeah,
watched it
I
yet.
haven't seen it.
Okay, so I'm going to try and avoid like big spoilers for Promare. Not that Promare is particularly like a movie that needs to be spoiler free to go into, but I'll try to keep it general. And the reason I bring it up is because I think the two are actually very thematically similar, and I think that this is what makes this damns BNA a little bit in comparison. So overall, the theme for Promare is basically racism is bad. And you see, racism is bad because, regardless of race, everybody loves pizza. And if we all love pizza, then why can't we band together to do greater things? Like form a giant robot to literally beat the racism out of the planet. And obviously, this is a really simplistic message. It's well intentioned, but it's not like Amaishi is really interrogating these themes that hard. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like Promare makes it very apparent from the beginning, from the get-go, that hey, this is the theme of the story, but also it's not something. We're not gonna like really dig deep on this, and like
Right.
that's fine. It's entertainment. It exists
Right.
to entertain. It's a catalyst for interesting, fun, visually exciting spectacle. And so yes, the overall plot might be like racism is bad, but really it's just an excuse to be like, man, what like crazy ass shit will happen on screen. And I think that in contrast, I think this is the thing I began to realize with like episode 8 that we just watched, is that I think Yoshinari, the problem he runs into with BNA is that he is kind of doing the same racism parable story, but he wants us to take it seriously. Or I think he wants us to take it more
yes.
seriously. Right?
Well,
like, I don't know
yes.
about episodes toward the end, but I can at least look at episodes like the Dolphin episode to say, I think Yoshinari is at least, as a creator, as a storyteller, he is taking that theme more seriously than Amaishi did.
See, I agree with that, and that's part of it. I think they're actually taking on too many themes. I feel like that's just one of the many things. Like,
Yeah.
like you guys have seen the cult come in, right?
Yes.
And
So like,
Right.
they take that into like the whole religion being the opium of the people direction.
right. I mean, it's juggling a lot of
And
different things.
There's a couple other things that pop up before you're going to finish, which totally muddies like when you talk about Promare having like that simple theme. That's good because you could just say, here's my point, and I'm going to make my point, and really should only have one point. Like you can explore different facets of it if you want to take it more seriously, but like that should be like if you're gonna have a message, like that should be your message. I don't feel like there's one message to BNA that they're sticking
Also,
with.
and I agree.
they're
That I think
also-
also the issue it runs into is if you're constrained to 12 episodes, yeah, you do kind of have to keep it focused.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And-
So
sorry, go ahead.
I think that's part of why it's hard to care on some of these things, is because you're kind of throwing out all these ideas and messages and not really
Right. I mean, I think it's an issue of like you could focus on any one of these for like 12 episodes and probably get some good mileage out of it, right? I mean, look, like Kill la Kill is 26 episodes, and that's basically just like clothes are fascism or something.
Or something, yeah.
Or while yeah, like I think so that's the thing. So the realization I came to with episode 8, I think episode 8 on paper the sum of its individual parts is actually fairly impressive. It is a good episode. There is interesting action, there are interesting character dynamics at play, and it moves the plot in an interesting direction. The problem, and I think it's kind of similar to what you were talking about, Jill, about the characters, is that, so in episode 8, the deuteragonist, Ugami, right? He reveals something, a secret about him to Mitsuru. It's something we, the viewers, have known for a while, or has been frankly obvious, but in universe, it's meant to be a big reveal. And in terms of their character dynamic, it's meant to represent the trust and the relationship that Ogami and Mitsuru share. Like, we've like been working together for so long that I finally like trust you enough to reveal my secret.
Right.
The problem is they actually have not been hanging out that much in the prior 7 episodes. Like, we don't actually have, like, you can tell the dynamic is obviously intended to be an odd couple buddy cop sort of situation, but they haven't done any buddy cop shit.
Right.
There's
no build up.
There's no room for
that.
this stuff to breathe.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I think, and I don't even just mean I think that BNA needed more episodes directed by Amaishi, but I think BNA needed more episodes in the tone of episode 5. You think about, like, what were the best episodes of the Little Witch Academia TV series, and it's stuff like the broom race, it's the Susie episode, it's the episodes that aren't actually that concerned with the main plot and are more just Akko interacting with, her friends and classmates in interesting ways that better fleshes out the shape of the setting. And I think BNA is really lacking that. Like, the overall plot is about, Mitsuru and Ogami have to protect Anima City, but it hasn't even answered the question of, why is Anima City worth protecting? Like, if it weren't for episode 5, we'd have zero connection at all to, like, the actual people in the city.
Right. Well, I'm going to refrain from saying anything else till you guys finish the series, so we'll resume this discussion next time. I'll be very interested to hear what you guys say about the plot developments in the final 4 episodes.
I mean, I think... I think we're being very critical because, of course, it's Yoshinari, it's Trigger, blah, blah, blah. It's a studio that we have, a lot of love for and maybe some pretty high expectations at this point. But I do want to make it clear that BNA's not a bad show. It's
fine.
It's lowercase g good. I do think that there's a lot of, like valid qualities it has. I mean, Jail, now you've watched it, I mean, you could probably agree that, like, it kind of exists in that same space as, like, the Little Witch Academia TV show of, like, this is on Netflix, and you could show it to your kids, like, with zero, like...
There's some parts I wouldn't necessarily want young kids to see happening in the back half.
Okay, fine. I can only
even the episode 8 fight gets pretty violent and bloody,
but it's not anything worse than like what kids have seen.
Your mileage may vary depending on your children.
They're animal people. It's the
law of the jungle.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Jill, but I also feel, okay, fine, maybe it's not as child-friendly as Little Witch Academia, but I feel like it exists...
I wouldn't show it to, like, a 5-year-old.
No, but I think it exists in that same realm of, like,
like 10 and up, maybe.
Yeah, 10 and up, right? Like, it's in
E10
that.
plus.
It's in that. Yeah, E10 plus.
E10 plus, yeah.
Right, and I do think that, like, again, it's a very competently made show. I think that if this were coming from any other studio, I'm not saying we'd be, like, singing its praises, but we would probably be giving it a lot more rope. I think it's just that...
Yeah, I don't know. As someone who is more inclined to be critical of Trigger, I would probably have similar feelings regardless. But it is a good... It's a good show. It's just, we know what Trigger is capable of, and we don't feel like it's living up to that expectation.
Right, but like, how much of this is BNA having to stand up against other Trigger shows versus BNA having to stand up to it, like your average spread of anime?
Yeah, I mean, I would still, like I said, I feel like I would still have similar problems with it regardless, but, that is definitely a factor. But, I will say it does look nice, and it's probably one of the... I absolutely love... I just want to throw this in here as one final point. I love the color choices and the art direction.
Yeah. Yeah, this I've been hammering this point like every podcast, man. Like,
so good.
Yeah,
on
that shows
from an
art
artistic
direction.
perspective.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
The art direction is amazing.
I mean,
so
I maintain that even in a year with stuff like Dorohedoro and Eizouken, I do think BNA is it's in the conversation. It's
a looker. It's not there's not a lot of budget saving corner cutting on this one, unless it's intentional for comic effect.
I mean, I feel like the show also could have used more of that, right? Like that's kind of what I mean when I say that I don't think Yoshinari has the same skill set as some of his more like TV honed peers.
Right. Okay, well, we will revisit that for some final thoughts, and once you guys have finished. So let's move along to another show that I caught up with since last episode. I've been watching a lot of anime. I have finally watched all 6 episodes of Kakushi Goto.
Yes,
which
Artemis, you have been vindicated by history. The rest
Thank
of
you.
us
Appreciate it.
got around to watching
I
it.
apologize once again for leaving that off that episode because we should have all been watching this.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
You all did not warn me about the emotional sucker punches.
I
Okay.
said, no, I feel like I gave fair warning. I think I said, or at least I definitely should have said if I did not, that there are some moments that just sneak up on you when you least expect them.
I mean, again, I'd like to apologize. I feel like I did a rather poor job of trying to sell it last time, but that's because, okay, look, when you want the G sell on an anime, you get there are two brands. You get the Dorohedoro / B-Star / Golden Kamui sell, where I have clearly written notes. I've prepared a legal case, and I am going in with a clear-minded purpose. And then you get the sell for the things I like, but I do not feel like my reputation is on the line, so I'm just kind of like,
It was alright.
I don't know, it was good. You should probably watch it. And that's kind of what I did to Kakushi Goto. I apologize, but I'm glad that John, I'm glad you decided to keep up with it, because I really do think that maybe it does take a couple episodes to like really rev up. But I think once it does, it's really strong.
I mean, it's good from episode 1, but I feel like it gets better
Totally.
as the episodes go on. I don't know why, but it's I really like the way they balance out because it's all based on the one joke, right, of him not wanting his daughter to find out.
Yeah.
But they find ways to spin that into other like completely unrelated jokes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure about that at first. My one kind of thing that I was worried about was that the joke would get old.
Right. And yeah, so they'll use that joke as like the launching point, but eventually that's no longer the joke. It's just like the prompt to get into whatever wacky situation.
And I think that another reason I think it does get better over time is that it is very, like, yes, you have the core cast, right, of, the dad and his daughter, right? But I think that it is actually a pretty solid ensemble comedy, right? And as they've introduced more characters, they've been able to introduce, like, new vectors for the comedy to come through, right? Like, you have, like... Well, you got, like, the episode, it was episode 5, right? Where, like, Kakashi Sensei's gotta go do an all-nighter for, like, the chapter, right? And, like, it's just, like, they just keep adding new characters to show up at his house to watch his daughter. And, like, it is very funny to watch, like, these, like, initially disparate elements play off each other in very interesting ways, right? Like, first it's the teen idol, then it's the housekeeper, then the editor, then the teacher. It works super well. And And yeah, as you guys said, I think that, honestly, kind of similar to Kaguya-sama, right, is that both shows are kind of centered around this one central joke, but it's used as a vector into, like, other, like, just really good jokes, right? Like in episode 6, maybe it's because I'm a creative, but, like, the running joke in episode 6 is it hit really well, right? The whole Kakashi Sensei's his brand of imposter syndrome, his insistent belief that nobody's shown up to this signing. You're all you
right.
all paid.
They're all
to
paying
come here.
people. They're all somehow paying 100 people.
Right, and it's it's a beautiful illustration of imposter syndrome in that I think it's a thing that all creatives suffer from. For those not familiar, imposter syndrome is basically the self-held belief that you have not earned your celebrity or your attention or your success.
One day everyone will find out that I'm truly a fraud, and I'm just
a trash person writing trash manga.
Yeah, and that you just somehow cheated your way to success, and that eventually one day everybody will figure out. They will uncover the truth, and you will have your fall from grace. But the thing that
be canceled on Twitter,
right? Exactly. But imposter syndrome also often leads to almost a weirdly egotistic view of yourself. I've definitely fallen into this trap before of you are so sure that you are a failure that you invent increasingly absurd ways for people to... You invent increasingly absurd conspiracies for why people still like you, when it's
actually nobody gives a fuck.
Right, actually it's the other way around. Nobody gives enough of a fuck to craft a conspiracy around you of all people,
Right. I mean, we saw that happening when he's trying to figure out how they paid everybody off to come to this signing.
Right.
And his assistants are like, that
There's
that
no
guy's
way we
got a
could
5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
We didn't pay the kid. What are you talking about?
And also, there's no way we could possibly afford to pay these people.
Right. We could, and his terrible editor assistant,
awful
whatever,
editor is just right.
is like, oh well, we couldn't afford to pay even if we wanted to. So
especially not for someone of your caliber.
Yeah.
Which is very good. It's
Side note: I asked this question before, but who's worse, that guy? Who did I say? Nita's underling from Hinamatsuri,
right.
or Kuzupi from Girlish Number?
As somebody who has only watched 2 out of those 3, and
you've got one bullet,
and Hinamatsuri is kind of off in the distance. I mean, here's the thing, right? Based on what you've told me about Nita's underling, I'm I'd probably save that bullet for that guy, because
he made Anzu cry.
Right, anybody who dares hurt Anzu probably deserves a bullet, regardless of the context around it, but that editor is a real fucking dirtbag, huh?
Yeah, it's a good joke.
And he thinks he's not too. He's going around he thinks he's doing a really swell job of everything.
Right, that's probably the worst thing, right? He's full on Donning-Kruger syndrome of
right.
I don't see the problem.
What was the? I don't think it was. It was with some of the previous episodes, but they're kind of blending together because I marathoned them. Where he sends all the documents in individual boxes.
To his house.
And then he's like, you could have just sent me the PDFs. And he's like, what? He's just he's horrible at his job.
How did this guy get hired?
Yeah.
Right, but then it's I mean, that's the thing, right? It's it's very funny, but then also it's every now and then he shoots back and you're like, oh god, what if the asshole is right? Where he's look at it from my perspective.
There are a couple of moments where he has these kind of epiphany type things that everyone's like, oh.
Right, when he shoots
he's
back
right.
when he shoots back at Kaku, she's like, think about it from my perspective. I have to be your editor. And it's oh yeah, he is kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh no!
Yeah.
He insists on this elaborate off-site office because of his absurd demands, and also it's let's be real, dude. You're an also ran. Yeah, you had a popular gag manga 10 years ago, but everybody knows you're kind of just coasting now. It's it gets uncomfortably real.
Yeah.
And yet, despite the fact that he's just coasting, he still goes to a summer festival and has people selling
bad knockoffs of his
terrible knockoffs.
His tights character, the guy with the tights on his head.
It's really well done, and I don't want to. We've been talking about the comedy, but I do not want to take away from the fact that it's a sincere as fuck anime. It really, when it wants to when it wants to hit you,
when it swings hard.
Yeah,
with
like,
those emotional or kind of
yeah,
sentimental
like,
moments.
definitely. I mean, no lie, man. Like, it's, not, slight spoiler, but like, just that small bit where like when Hime finds the new boxes and she realizes
man.
they're from her dad, not from her mom. It's like, I was like, oh shit, oh no,
Yeah.
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 oh, you got me good this time.
Yeah. Was it episode 6 that ended with her opening the 17 box?
I think it was, yeah.
With the bad.
That's like the
slice of
last
life
thing we
manga.
saw, right?
I think so, because the rest of that episode was dedicated to Kidzoland or whatever they went to.
Right.
Yeah.
Kids in area or
Like,
something.
I've only seen the first episode. Is the dad dead in the future?
We
don't
think
know.
that's.
Wait,
I mean,
I think that they're playing it as though he is, but the
Right,
joke
yes.
might be that he's not. But we don't
Right.
know.
So it's definitely the hard thing to tell. Of like, I mean, I think the emotional payoffs are working right now, but because some of us are a little bit familiar with his prior, with the creator's original works, right? Like Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, it is a little hard to tell. Like, oh, is this like real drama or is this like the
Setup,
longest,
yeah.
Longest build up to
right? Like the longest black comedy con that we've seen in a while, and my suspicion is it's probably going to be a little bit of both. Like, I don't think he's dead, but I'm willing to bet it's still something not good, but it will also be darkly humorous in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
something had to have happened, right? Like,
Right.
but whether or not, I don't know. Like, the tone of the show feels like they wouldn't go that dark, but I don't know. I
think something will. I think they will eventually realize something has happened to the dad. It's just like, how
Yeah.
serious is it actually, right?
But
Like,
even for this show, I feel like even with the often quite cynical, humorous moments, it's a remarkably gentle show.
yeah,
I didn't
Right.
I didn't go into it suspecting it would be gentle, and it kind of is. It's it's
yeah.
No, I definitely agree. Like, there are definitely. It could get much darker. Like I see how it could be. Like, there are definitely jokes where I can tell, oh, if you really wanted to, like, really go dark on this, like, single pseudo-absentee dad sort of angle, like, there's some real fucked up ways you could do this, but I think that it is actually it is the gentleness and the restraint in those
Right.
places that
because
tell me.
because at the end of the day, he's a really good dad. Like, he's his
Yeah.
daughter is his number one priority, and always will be.
Yeah, and he's definitely trying his best, even if, like...
Yeah, and he's doing like a pretty good job.
Yeah, right? And so, like, I think it's because of that restraint that, like, I think whatever antics happens to the dad in his attempts to hide the secret, I think will always be played as a joke. But the thing is, they never play off his love for his daughter as a joke. Like, that
Right.
part is sincere. And I think that's kind of
Right.
what makes it work.
Yeah, I think because of the tone of the show, I would be inclined to say that he must still be alive. It kind of the whole box thing made me think a lot of the one good episode of Violet Evergarden. I don't know if
Which
everybody.
don't think I even
episode was
watched
that?
I don't think I even got that far.
It was the one. It was the one where she has to write the letters for the mom
Okay,
that's
yeah,
dying.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a similar situation where she was writing the letters for her daughter in the
Right,
future.
like a post.
But that was like a heavy, serious thing because that's a heavy, serious show, or at least it tries to be, right?
Right.
So like that made sense. Whereas I don't want to dunk too hard on Violet Evergarden. It's
I'm
fine.
perfectly willing to dunk on Violet Evergarden.
But that episode was good. That episode was good.
It was.
But the tone of the show matched that kind of heavy, serious material where and then the mother does eventually pass away, and you see the daughter in the future and all that. Whereas this, I feel like the tone of the show would lean more toward this is a elaborate joke.
Right.
But
Like maybe he sent his daughter on this elaborate kind of treasure hunt sort of thing.
he doesn't want to see the moment she discovers it or something. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
I mean,
He
so
put an
as
action
somebody-
plan in place for when she did discover it, she would be kickstarted into this elaborate
Right.
treasure hunt of some kind.
right.
As someone who plays a lot of the Yakuza games, my assumption is the reveal is that he will be in jail for some reason. Like, not for life or anything, right? Not like a death sentence, but like I don't know, just one of his antics went way too far, and
in jail for running around with tights on his
right,
head.
they put him in the slammer for a few years or something.
I don't know if it's that dark.
I mean, again, if we're gonna go for he's not dead, like, what is a thing you could do that's like serious but not too awful?
All right, well, what are your alternatives?
It's off in America for Anime Expo.
Not this year, unfortunately. But, yeah. All right. Well, that show is great, and we'll see. I hope they come to some kind of satisfying conclusion, because I'm assuming it's only the 12 episodes,
Right.
I think so, yeah.
Even if we even make it to the end, but we'll see. So, all right, let's move along. A lot of good comedies this season.
The other good comedy this season.
Yeah, I had the realization this is probably the best season for anime comedy since summer 2014.
I like that you can even remember that far back,
when we had Nozaki-kun and Sabage-bu and a couple other shows.
All right, yeah, that's pretty solid then.
Yeah, even those two alone are like top tier anime comedy.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot this season too. I don't know if I put any of them on par with those two, but overall, the sheer quantity.
Right.
So yeah, Kaguya-sama still great. I just wanted to shout out some of the jokes here, which were fantastic. Did you get to watch episode 5?
I did.
Okay, yeah. Well, 4 had the one with Kaguya's assistant / ninja maid, trying to score a fake date with the president.
Yeah.
That was pretty great.
Right, basically as a proof of like Kaguya, you literally got this shit handed to you on a silver plate and you can't bring it home. Here, let me show you how easy it would be.
Right. We're kind of reminded in these 2 episodes that Kaguya is kind of a terrible person.
Yeah. I mean, aren't the best comedies about terrible people?
Yeah. I think for a lot of the show you get lulled into this false sense of security that she's like this sweet, quiet girl or something, but she's actually a terrible person. And we have the whole like subplot of the student council president thing. It's kind of what I was talking about last time, where I like how there's like certain continuity to the episodes, even though it's a comedy with like a lot of one-off bits and gags. There's still like a thread going on in the background.
Yeah.
Because we meet Shiragani's main competition for the student council, who's like that super serious underclassman that wants to like ban everything. She's like stealing Fujiwara away because she's actually taking Fujiwara seriously, and nobody else does.
It's a very good twist of my greatest my master plan is to take the joke character seriously.
Yeah, well, they rarely bring it up, but like Fujiwara is like the daughter of politicians, right?
Right. Yes.
So she actually may know what she's doing, and occasionally she'll drop a young.
I mean, apparently she'll hint she actually does, right? When in episode 5, she literally states, "Oh, campaign promises don't mean jack fucking shit. That's just what politicians say, get people to believe in them. But like once they're actually elected, nobody actually holds them to their promises."
Right. She knows,
and it's just like
she knows how this all works.
Right.
But,
yeah. I mean, I feel like it's beating a dead horse, but Fujiwara continues to be the fucking MVP of this show. I feel like both episode 4 and 5, she has some extremely good moments. Like in 4, is 4 the one where everybody thinks it's gonna be a confession?
Yes.
And the entire school just fucking.
The entire school is lined up in the courtyard for the confession, and
just Fujiwara's out loud statements just making things worse with every passing second. And then you got 5, the return of the Fujiwara tries to tutor Shirogane in some extremely middling task that he is legendarily awful at.
Yes, that's always a good bit. But I loved in 5 the Shiragani's rested eyes.
Yes, his
I don't know why. Like it was such a dumb gag, but
Shirogane
I found that
rested form is.
Yeah, so normally this guy has like tired eyes all the time, and he looks like very menacing.
Right, he's glaring all the time.
Yeah, so like because the student council is on basically break until the re-election, he's like getting actual sleep, and now he has like these beautiful sparkly shoujo eyes.
Yes, I love the implication that is his natural state, and
yes,
sleep deprivation is the cause of the version we see most of the time.
There's so many great visual gags in this episode.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, give the director a raise.
Yeah,
on this one.
I think between both that and Kakashi Goto, like, not only do we have two like really strong comedies this season, but they're both also fairly well directed, like on a visual level. Like, I think that like it's a thing that I have to admit I sometimes maybe sleep on, is like how much good directing contributes to visual comedy, but both are a reminder of how big of a contribution that can be.
Yeah, definitely. I also found out, and I want to put this on tape.
Right,
I was
yes.
shocked to find that the director of Kaguya-sama was actually the director of Rakugo,
Which is
under a different name.
Okay, sure.
pretty wild to me. Also, the different name part, which I'm like, wait, why that?
That uncommon.
I guess.
So that's some broad range.
Yeah.
Sure. It's like the director of Daylight's High School Boys was the director of like multiple Brave shows.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So that was kind of a neat thing to find out, I guess. But give that person a raise, because they're doing a fantastic job on this so far.
Yeah.
But
I do like it's one last thing I want to say about Kaguya-sama, and I know we've just been listing off jokes from the episodes, but I am actually kind of looking forward to the results of the latest plot reveal at the end of episode 5, of like the other candidate, her plan for her presidency, which includes apparently press ganging Shirogane and Kaguya into her cabinet.
right.
And Kaguya half realizing, wait a minute,
I'll still get what I want, right?
right, like this actually might not be a terrible idea. Until she mentions that she's going to ban all relationships.
Yeah.
Which,
The sub snuck in social distancing.
Yes, which
on that one,
I like that. You can kind of already see what the new jokes could be from this plot development of, like, let's say she wins the presidency, and yes, Shirogane and Kaguya are now part of her cabinet, so they have an excuse to be together, but the new president's anti-relationship rule means now we have new jokes about, like, having to hide that, I guess, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, it could open up totally new possibilities.
yeah, which
I mean, do we think she's actually going to win?
I think she might. I mean, the way they're playing this up, like, I almost feel like, I think that it can be interesting when a comedy shakes up the status quo. And, like, what could be a bigger status quo change than they are not, they are not the head honchos of the school anymore, and they're also now, like, subservient to another, like, leader's, like,
Right.
rule that, like, goes explicitly against their desires, right? Like,
It would be interesting, and Fujiwara would be vice president.
yeah, exactly. Like, and for somehow Ishigami will still be there. Who could say? But
Yeah, they'll give him something to do, right?
Right.
All right. Well, that show continues to be a lot of fun, and yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the election. I don't know if they'll go that far, but I think that girl will stick around in some
right.
capacity.
I don't think you would introduce a new character like this if you do not plan to have her stick around.
Like, even if Shirogane wins, she'll still be on the council somehow or
Right.
something. It would be funny if she joins and takes Ishigami's job, and he's not on the student council anymore, but is still trying to find ways to hang out with them.
Yes. Okay. That would also.
I feel like that would be very on brand for.
That
his
would also
character,
be
but-
yes.
Yeah.
I like the way you think, Jill.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. All right. Moving on to another comedy. Let's talk about the Gallon Dino Redemption Tour.
Who's still watching this?
I am.
I actually liked these episodes. I don't know how you feel, Iro.
They were all right. The
Go ahead.
live action segments were a bit better than weird comedian man. Like
Yes, well,
Dino
there's-
goes camping. That's weird and interesting in itself. Also, in one of the locations often used by Kamen Rider, is where they were camping.
Oh, is that? Oh, you could actually recognize.
They have like 10 locations that they use.
Was
all
it the
the
quarry?
time. No, it's the river.
Okay.
That one river. But yes, these were okay episodes. Like,
yeah. So
yeah,
I think because like the big problem we were having that we were talking about, even putting aside the horrible episode 4 comedy thing that drove me crazy. The live action bits had like did not mesh, like the tone of them did not mesh with the animated bits.
right.
Like there was like two like completely different things.
On some
that,
level, that's part of the charm, but also like you can only handle.
Well, it made
so
it
much.
interesting, but like it was not. I didn't feel like it was ultimately doing the show
Right.
justice. But in 5 and 6, though, the live action segments are kind of basically more of the show, just with in live action form. The camping bit they did throw in, he burns the
Time travel book.
The time travel book at the end.
Time travel.
Yes.
Wait, so
as
he
one little-
he gave up his time travel?
Apparently.
Well, we didn't actually see Shota Aoi show up. But
for
for some reason, Dino had the book, and he burns it
Okay.
at the end of his camping trip.
Also, it's like an absurdly high quality steak.
Yeah, like half the episode is him like preparing this steak,
Grilling the
which
steak.
is pretty funny because again, this is live action and it's a man in a dinosaur suit. But yeah, and then 6 they just kind of go to him and Kaede playing games and him getting mad and turning into a tiny dinosaur and storming off,
Right.
which was kind of amusing. But I still just wish it was just the animated bits though. Like I really like
the manga.
right. And I think it's because like episode 6 had a joke that I think was a good example of like the tone of the show when they rent the movies and they're watching. So like Kaede rents what was it, Jurassic Park Horror?
Correct.
Was the name of the movie?
That's all
but
right.
it's basically Jurassic Park. And
She's like,
and
oh,
they're
I thought
watching
you would like this. It's got dinosaurs in it.
yeah, they're watching the thing, and like there's like a dinosaur chasing the humans, and she's like, "Oh, look, it's one of you," right? and then and he's like terrified, and then so Dino picked a like horror
Picked
movie
like
or something,
the
and
fake
and
of the ring. And they do
yeah,
the
so
same
like
joke.
there's like a girl crawling out of the well, and it's all scary and everything, and Dino can't talk, but he points as if to say, "Hey, look, it's one of you."
That's pretty good.
But that's like it's like a very easygoing kind of nice tone to it, and I feel like the stuff they were doing in the live action does not match that at all. Like they're again trying to tap into that
Shit post.
the more mean pop team epic type of energy,
Yeah.
and it just was not matching. Whereas these past 2 episodes, I felt like it went better together. So I actually kind of enjoyed them.
I don't even know what to make of this anymore. Like,
Yeah.
one week you're all telling me, don't watch this, and another week I'm like, should I watch this?
Just skip episode 4.
I'm like-
Skip the second half of
I
episode
don't
4.
know if
Pretend
I'd
it didn't
necessarily
happen.
recommend this show. I'm more watching it because Ziganakuge is want to keep watching it.
You're getting dragged along.
Kinda, yeah. But
Well, speaking of shows, I'm dragging people along to keep watching.
I bet I'm enjoying Gallon Dino more than you guys are enjoying listeners.
I looked
low bar,
I
my
looked at the
friend.
show notes thinking to speak on Pre-Rise. And then I'm like, oh, rights listeners.
Oh, isn't Gundam on hold?
Yes.
Well,
but
actually,
went on hold this week.
There was one more episode.
Oh, okay.
And, no, we don't have time for that. We can talk about that any fucking
Yeah.
time.
I pulled it off the list because I thought it was done.
All
but
right. No, they managed to sneak one more episode out, and I will just say real briefly, it had a pretty good fight in it. It's just that when you get one good fight every 5 episodes, that's not a good ratio for a show about giant robots.
right.
Yeah.
Speaking of shows that
speaking of
also have
listeners,
bad fucking fights.
All right. Well, I gave up on listeners, so I'll turn the floor over to you guys. How far off the deep end have we gone?
They had an episode about Prince, and it was still boring.
It wasn't the worst episode, but it
I
was
was
boring. Yeah.
Like I was like viscerally offended on like some like instinctual level. I was like,
I see one of the episodes has "When Doves Cry" in the title.
I was like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, that's the artist formerly known as Prince. How could this not be a good episode? And somehow they found a way.
Did they actually incorporate Prince somehow, or is
well,
this the episode title?
I mean,
Stinka.
Yeah.
It's your highness. They
dude
don't
is
call him
literally
Yes.
Prince. I mean, it's
Yeah.
they're not being subtle about it. Like some of the other music references, they've just like said the name of the song or the band, but the dude they meet in this week is literally Prince.
Yeah.
And they somehow blew it.
They
Yeah.
somehow blew
Yeah,
it.
they
I
did.
can't even.
I can't even imagine what context Prince showed up
In
in the episode.
a
but-
bathtub. He showed up in a bathtub with,
Oh well, that makes sense.
which does make sense, but like it was just.
Actually, all right. You know what kind of bothered me? It almost felt like, it almost felt like somebody had just watched like a 5-minute YouTube video about Prince and decided, oh, okay, that's what that character is. Okay, like it didn't even like. It's not even like. It wasn't even like a good take on anime Prince. Like
It was a lazy take. I
Yeah.
felt like, yeah, they. I don't know. I don't think the people behind this show know anything about the music they're referencing, or if they do, they're doing the single worst possible job.
I mean, you'd have to believe Daisato does, right? Like,
You would think, but
right? Like, you would hope.
or he just gave instructions to everyone. Everyone was like, "Yeah, cool, got it," and just like, yeah, watched like a 5-minute YouTube compilation of all the artists in question and decided that they now had a decent breadth of knowledge to do the
just
whole
like-
show.
It's just like, motherfucker, you know, you do Cowboy Bebop, you do Samurai Champloo, you do Eureka 7, like all these shows that are like at least 30 to 40% about music, and like you'd want to believe a dude like that is like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like this dude will like. Well, this guy will have like some good, interesting takes on music.
I think-
and
I
instead
think-
he's literally just like name dropping without any like
Yeah.
actual.
I feel
substance
like
to
the
it.
problem is they were so gung ho about putting in these music references that it's to the absolute detriment of everything else. Like
Yeah.
including that point, like they were just so focused on it
We're gonna put Prince in here. Plot be damned.
that
Right,
they lost. But it's like that with every episode. Like
Right.
like here's the shoehorned in reference.
And like the problem is that these references don't usually actually amount to anything. Like not
They
even.
don't mean anything. They have no meaning. Like in
Right.
terms of like the story or the characters. Like there's no point to
Yeah,
them.
like I think it would be one thing of like. It's like it would be one thing if like you have these characters who are very obviously supposed to be references to specific artists and songs, and it would be one thing if like, oh, they took like the life story of that artist or like the meaning of one of their songs and like kind of incorporated that into like the thematic thrust of an episode, but they don't even do that. It's just like
Right.
Their version of incorporating it thematically is to throw away some lyric lines that make no goddamn sense, like in terms
Right.
of dialogue.
it's really.
I thought this show was about robots.
It's
I
not.
don't-
Here's the thing: the show's not about anything at this point. It's not about
Oh,
a
it's not
single
about
goddamn
anything.
thing
Okay,
like that I can figure out.
That's a good way to put it. It's like I don't know what the show like because it's so scattershot. Like if we were talking about B&A trying to tackle too many things, like at least the too many things B&A is tackling could all fall under like a general umbrella of similar.
You can identify them.
Yeah, there's a relatively similar like thrust to all of them. Listeners is just all over the place. Like, you have-
Listeners is there's 6 different episodes and every one of them belongs to a completely different show.
Yeah, like I think Iro kind of put it like pretty well. I think it was even like in the last podcast about how like it almost
What did
feels
I
like the
say?
show. You said that listeners feels like a show that like wants to be like Space Dandy
Okay.
in the sense that like it is an episodic like and what's the word? And not analogy.
Anthology.
Anthology. My bad. Yes, anthology of like works like like that are like connected through by a single like overarching thematic like sensibility, but it's not. It isn't doing that because it is still like a ostensibly it is still a singular narrative, right? Like from point A to point B, but like from episode to episode, it's like it's so like. Yeah, just like offbeat. Like
there's no cohesion.
There's
nothing. Yeah. There's nothing that manages to bring all of these together into any kind of internal logical story or theme or even atmosphere. You know?
Right. Like, oh yeah, totally. Right. I mean, like you go from like. You go from literally not Eureka 7 vibes with the first episode to like, Prince's hedonistic, pleasure city to like surrealistic, like mirror pyramid, orange sky, like
racism bad.
It's just, yeah, it really is just like.
It feels like they just drew some shit out of a hat, like at their table meetings or something, and said, you know what, we're gonna do this episode, Prince. Cool. Let's do it, guys.
Love it.
Yeah, I think Artis, you honestly put it best at the very beginning of just. It feels like if assuming Daisato truly loves music and is genuine about it, it sure doesn't feel like the rest of his collaborators working on this do, because it just doesn't feel. The music connection just doesn't feel genuine.
All right, you got to pick one or the other, this or Carol and Tuesday.
Pick which one is worse or pick which one is better.
I mean, which one if you have to watch one, which
honestly,
I'll pick Carol and Tuesday because at least we had the mermaid sisters and the there was some things to like about that show.
Yeah, Carol Tuesday did have its moments.
We had Idea the robot.
Right, the fucking alcohol-powered producer robot.
Yeah,
there were good moments.
It wasn't a good show, but it had its moments, and I don't. That's the thing also about listeners. I can't think honestly of a single moment, just even part of a scene where I was like, "Oh, that was good."
Yeah, I feel like at most is like maybe moments from episode 1, but again, how much of that is just like latent Eureka 7 nostalgia? So.
Exactly, and I'd like to take back also everything I ever said about the show being like Eureka 7 because it's now not.
No,
like episode 1 aside, it's not
in many ways, that is very Eureka 7. Because even Eureka 7 is nothing like Eureka 7 anymore. So
yeah.
I will,
all right.
I will say one brief thing, actually. I'm sorry, because you brought up Carol and Tuesday, it did actually make me think. Like, at the time, I was not 100% sold on the episode, but now, in hindsight, comparing it to listeners, I think that maybe, if you were really going to be so blatant as to just, like, feature real-world musicians in your story, I think even Carol and Tuesday found a better way to do it with the episode about, the,
fake Whitney Houston.
Yes, the fake Whitney Houston, right, from Gus's past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how, like, in many ways that episode is almost like Watanabe's attempt to wrangle with, like, the tragedy of her death and, like, trying to, like, ask, like, could there have been an alternative? Like, could we, not that could we have, quote-unquote, saved Whitney Houston, but, like, was there another path for her than the one she tragically took? And, like, again, whether that works for you or not is another story, but at least it is an attempt to wrangle with, like, the legacy and story of real artists and, like, attempt to, like, layer those into the overarching narrative of your main plot. And I think, in hindsight, like, that is more genuine, at least in its intent anyways, than anything in Listeners.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, so we're halfway through.
I don't
still
know.
Watching,
I don't know if I could watch another episode because after episode 6, I was, what was I doing? I wasn't even paying attention during episode 6. Like I started watching it and then I started like checking my emails at the same time and like reading something. Like that was how invested I was in episode 6.
Right.
So I can tell you what happened roughly, but I don't care.
I definitely completely zoned out during parts of episode 6. I was just like, I had realized 30 seconds had passed and that I had not remembered what happened.
once it becomes something to put on in the background, that's a bad sign,
Yeah.
right?
And out of obligation, because it's one of
Yeah.
the series that's still airing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if I'll drop it because I am definitely one of those people who like truly gets caught up in sunk cost fallacy of like, well, I watched half of this, I might as well watch the rest.
I don't know. I might have to drop it. I'll take up Wave
been
Listen
there.
to Me instead.
You should, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a smart choice.
Yes. If you're gonna switch it out for something else, then
Yeah.
yes, I would definitely.
No, that's 2 things away on the show notes. How are we supposed to segue now?
Yeah, you.
Oh, sorry.
messed up that segue already.
Ruined your segue, guys. My bad. Drop the spirit stick there.
Well.
All right. Well, let's move along then to I'll let the police car go by.
Segway police are coming for
Yep.
you.
The anime police are mad at me because I'm gonna have some words to say about Sing Yesterday for me.
What happened?
Yeah, right?
This
Yeah.
show has gone from there's been a pattern.
In two episodes, they've introduced 2 different characters to mess up the like love.
Is it
triangle
like
bullshit.
officially a harem show at this point? I feel like it's inching
it's
towards
getting
Well,
real close.
I don't think we're ever going to see these 2 characters again. But yes,
That like wait,
okay. Let me just start from the
Yeah.
beginning here. So the show has had a pattern of really pissing me off in the first half of the episode, and then somehow kind of making me feel better about it by the
Right.
end.
so it's nagging you.
Episode 5 and 6, I think I was just pissed off.
Yeah, no, I would agree. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, especially
So,
sex.
it's probably especially 6. Because episode 5 introduces this other guy character
It was like a
who conveniently
classmate
bumps
of
into
Pro
Haru.
Girl, right?
Right, he conveniently bumps into Haru, and he's in love with her, and he's probably way better than the main protagonist in every way. But
I mean, he's
Haru's
also
still,
kind of a pretentious douchebag.
he is, but he's still probably better than the main guy. But Haru's like, I don't know, man. I just love this guy.
no
Sorry, because
reason.
he actually tries to ask her out like a real man, and and she turns him down because she's still in love with this guy that nobody has any reason why she likes him. She doesn't even know. She's been asked directly like 3 times now, and she's like, I don't know, I just like him. So that made me angry. But 6 was
Right.
Oh my
where
God.
Guys, X shows up and needs to squat.
Always a
squat,
good,
needs to squat at his place for a week or 2.
Wow, always a good plot development in
And oh no,
romance
the other
shows.
2 girls he's relationship with like get the wrong idea.
and even though they're not dating or anything, they're getting jealous, and it's
Contrived as fuck.
It's like now this guy's got
Manufactured
3
Yeah.
this guy's got 3 girls that are just randomly popped into his life out of nowhere. The way they set it up, like I said, I don't think we'll see either of these 2 new characters.
They should
again,
come back
but-
dating each other.
Are you sure? Because I heard this manga was 18 volumes, right? So
Oh, they right. Well, at least in the anime,
there's a lot of potential show left.
I wouldn't see why they would bring them back, because they were basically there just to shake things up,
Right.
right?
They're the equivalent of a man entering the room with a gun. Like, basically,
The romance
on a
plot.
narrative level.
equivalent.
Oh no, my ex is here. Oh no, everyone's getting the wrong idea.
That seems a little
Like, how many girls does this guy have stalking him outside of his job?
Everyone in Japan.
Because that's like that's what all of them do, is like they wait for him outside of his job, and then
So, I mean, this is the thing, right? So, a few weeks ago, you guys were saying that, like, even if the romance wasn't great, the thing that really sold you on the show was that it was an extremely strong, a slice of life show, right?
Yeah, I
And
take
did a
it back.
really Good job.
I take it back.
okay.
Oh boy.
So the only thing I would follow up with on that, in a slight defense, is I generally like that they try to explore some of the more negative and like bad things that you do in these situations that you probably shouldn't, like kind of leading people on and stuff like that, but it's still kind of a realistic way of looking at it, because people do that, but that kind of all went out the
I
window
mean,
in
the
those
realism
episodes.
part for me of the show, and it is still there to be fair, was about how, society, and in particular, Japanese society in this case, will judge people because after graduating, they're going to work in a combini,
Right.
Yeah.
as if you're a terrible trash person because you didn't get a career in some kind of big company like you were supposed to, and so your life is now ruined, and now you're stigmatized by society for all the rest of your life, apparently.
Or there was a part in episode 6 where they were like teasing what's her name about not ever having a boyfriend or something like that, but
Right.
So the way it sounds to me is like. So the thing that it sounds to me is like the slice of life stuff that you guys really liked was because it was like fairly grounded and nuanced in its presentation, but the problem here is that the romance doesn't feel grounded and feels too contrived, I guess.
Like when the plot for two episodes in a row is, and here's this person, here's the character of the week
person
to shake
from your
it up,
past
like,
that conveniently you happen to run into,
right? To like create drama that is not really a consequence of the relationship between the main characters, but is caused by this outside force that is not really congruous with the actual plot.
Right.
Is this
and
also,
there is no progress,
right? Exactly.
in the relationship.
It's just a constant back and forth, and I don't care about the characters in terms of their romance anyway, or even as characters in themselves. I care about them in that they're a reflection of how they think of themselves because of the life choices they've made.
Right.
But I don't care about them in terms of like who's going to get with who. Like, I just don't give a crap about that part.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
and they're handling it so badly that even if I mean maybe that's part of why I don't care, but also it's like, I mean, the dude's like basically a harem protagonist at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like Artemis said,
But even the other characters, like even the school teacher, like I don't care about her either. She's a nice person, right? She's supposed to be the nice one, right? That cares about everyone and will always do her best to do the right thing or whatever. I don't care about her, and it's not. I don't not care about these characters because they're bad people. I just
there's nothing.
I'm given no reason to invest any kind of emotional.
Yeah.
Well, Dogokobo, you gave it your best shot.
This seems like more a problem with the manga, right? Like it shows so
I do.
You can't even say you're halfway through yet, and you might as well keep watching because this show is set to be 18 episodes long.
18? That's an interesting number.
Yeah.
That's like 1.5 cours. Wow.
Yeah.
And they did confirm. This is like we said. This is one of the ones they confirmed is done, so we're locked in.
Yeah.
But,
Wait. Now that I know that 18 episode runs are a thing that is allowed in anime, man,
are they gonna do like
Dorohedoro could have really used an 18 episode run.
Well, we are getting those shorts, right?
Yeah, but it's not gonna be the same.
I wonder how they're going to do. Is that going to be like an OVA or something?
Yeah, that's
the last 6 episodes are going to be streaming only.
Oh,
okay.
Huh, that's interesting.
The only recent example I can remember that was if you remember Kokoro Connect.
Yeah, I remember that
vaguely.
That they did a 6 episode OVA to end.
I'm getting wait. Was that Kyoani show?
No,
that was Silverlink, but yeah, so that's kind of unusual, but that's interesting. Yeah, I'll probably keep watching it.
Well, speaking of young adults with lots of problems.
All right, let's close up with another good comedy. Is Wave Listen to Me even a comedy at this point? I don't know. I don't even know what's going on with this show anymore.
Look,
but it's
now that we
good.
can unironically ask the question, who will shit in Minare's mouth this week? Yes, it's a comedy.
Yes, it's a comedy, but it's getting weird. Episode 5 was good. This was basically the final build-up to her first big radio show, which we all knew was coming eventually, but they finally get to it. And that was pretty good. Did she stop a murder? Was that real?
I think that was real. I mean, yes, I was as irritated as test. I was like, "Is this real? Is this the bit?"
That's half the fun of the show, is trying to figure out what's actually happening and
it's-
what's actually just imagination based on her
like
radio.
for a show that is like not grounded but as real about like the kind of problems that young adults go through. There's like a really like surrealist comedy streak to it at times.
That's what keeps it. It helps keep it interesting, right? So it's not just a boring, dry, dealing with problems in my mid to late 20s type of show.
Yeah, but I will say, as somebody who similarly has really loved the show mainly because of like Minare and her real life problems, I was pleasantly surprised by the radio bit. I think that it was a pretty solid pivot to a different style of humor that I think still worked, even if like there weren't any like real life ass problems for her to go through, and instead it just kind of became this like a very surreal radio play, right?
Right. And I think it was just the right length. Like, it was just the right amount of episode. I don't know if I would have wanted to go on too much longer.
Yeah.
But it was it was like it was kind of funny and amusing in its own right, even though it wasn't like advancing the plot or anything.
Yeah.
And episode 6, what happened?
I think it's probably going to end up being like sewage or something.
So yes, I imagine that episode 7 will eventually pull back the curtain and be like, actually, there's a mundane answer to all of this. But yeah, episode 6 is...
Is it going to be a mundane answer, or was this her, like... My thought... Okay, well, for context, she's doing her second radio program, and she goes and investigates... I'm not going to get into who the guy was, but that's a whole other story. But she goes and investigates this guy's apartment, and they think he killed his girlfriend and is possibly storing her in the roof or something. And there's, like, some kind of mysterious, possibly blood-like substance or something leaking from his roof or something.
Just to be clear, this is a comedy.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Can't wait, you guys. Can't wait.
And her and her friend are dressed like shrine maidens or something. It's weird. So I'm debating whether this is just like her elaborate idea for the episode that they're just going to totally pull back the curtain, and it's none of this is real. But like the bear fight in the first episode, but I don't know. They actually, this is the first time that they pulled something like this and like left it at the end of the episode as a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Right. So like we didn't get to see this week what was actually happening. But I was thinking about, and Zig's not here to defend himself, but we were having this conversation last episode with the Gallon Dino thing of how just like having weird stuff happen, like we like that, just if anything, just to keep you like on your toes and make things interesting, like, and things being unpredictable and weird are interesting that way, which I agree with to a certain degree. But the difference here is that, like, it still feels like it's part of the show, right? Like, it's not just like, and I'm sure there will be some kind of explanation for it once we get to it. But it's still fitting within the tone of the show and like whatever it is that they're trying to do. And I think and that I like, because now we have no idea what's going to happen. Like, they could do anything at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the most interesting things about Wave is, yeah, it's I legitimately don't know what's going to happen next week, right? Because the show has managed to kind of keep us surprised from week to week in terms of the type of humor it will engage in. Like, initially you think, oh, okay, this is going to be like, dry slice of life, young adults, sort of humor. But then it gets real surreal in some places. And now, like, it has this weird element of like blending of reality and fiction where we are no longer even sure what parts we're watching take place in the real world and which parts take place in like her narrated accounts of,
because they don't there's no like dream sequence music or anything.
No,
like like they just do it, and then you got to figure out, is this actually happening or not, and then they'll reveal what is real and what isn't later. But it's an interesting way to do it. But at the same time, it's not like you still have the core of her real life.
Yeah.
That keeps it grounded, so it's not just like totally random stuff happening.
Right. I mean,
it's not an Ikehara anime.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the joke playing off of last week's ridiculous stinger ending of her like saying, "I'm gonna pursue a career in radio," and then it does like the cut to the like the hand-drawn illustrated freeze frame. And then at the very beginning of this week, she calls her boss. It's like, "So, how much would I be making in radio based on this segment?" And then Amelia's like, "I'm going to keep working at the curry restaurant."
Right. They don't even have to tell you how much.
Yeah,
you just know.
You just know. The moment she says, "How much would I get paid for 4 20-minute segments a month?" And it's like, lady, I could tell you're not making much off that.
Yeah.
But
so, yeah, it just continues to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And because they've opened up that surreal factor to it, like they could just do whatever they want at this point. Definitely. It's like a blank canvas.
One last thing I do want to mention is, so this episode finally addressed the like, because I think if you go back to like I think episode 1 or 2 was the one that ended with like the guy in his apartment with the liquid dripping from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I think we were all like, "What's up with that?" And so they finally got around to that. And I feel like as they are beginning to introduce new future elements that I'm curious how will play out, because
like
there's also
the
a section,
lady working at the restaurant.
Yeah, because we go to Nakahara's apartment, right, where the lady has been staying with him, and of course Minari comes to the conclusion of like they're like sleeping together or something, and then the reveal is actually no, he lives there with his sister, and like they're letting her stay there because it turns out that her older brother is an abusive cultist or something. Like,
yeah,
that seems to be the vibe they're going for, and like again, that like sounds absurd to say out loud, but also because of the kind of show Wave is. Like, look, if we're like a few episodes later talking about, oh yeah, the cult arc has been really interesting,
yeah, I would not be surprised.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least. So I don't think they would.
Are they all going to connect together
somehow? I feel like they might. I mean,
do you have your cork board with the strings connecting all the pictures at home, G?
I should start putting that together. Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's so yeah. I think that they also have some plot things for later, I guess. And
yeah, they're planting seeds for later, right?
I don't know why I'm now getting like Welcome to the NHK vibes.
Yeah.
Like only with radio instead of like the main character being a hikikomori of some kind. Like
everyone's a little more delusional in Welcome to the NHK than Wave Listen to Me, but
I would somehow say by the thinnest of margins, the characters in Wave have their life slightly better together than Welcome to the NHK, but
because there was some cult mixing up in that too, if you recall. And like a pyramid scheme also.
Now that we're talking about this, Wave is going to have a cult arc, isn't it? Like, we might as well just get ready for it now. I feel like that's where we're going with this.
Yeah. Bring it on then.
Is she going to fight a cult? We know she can fight.
She fought a bear. She can fight a cult.
Is this just going to become is every plot line in Wave Listen to Me just going to be a sub story from the Yakuza video games?
Yeah, baby. I mean, the whole plot of this is Yakuza sub story.
Yeah, she's just going to infiltrate a cult.
Right.
I mean, getting on radio is already a Yakuza sub story.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Stumbling into radio. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right.
Late night radio, huh? I can see the appeal.
Wow.
I don't think we could get better than that. So
yeah. All right. Well, that's a good show. Artemis, if you're dropping something and want something to pick up,
Yeah, I will
say
see. I'll
check
see
that
if I
out.
can get through 6 episodes of that before next week, I guess.
Yeah, see how you like it. I'll be interested because I think we have me and G are the strongest proponents of this show in the GLORIO chat. I don't know if everybody's quite as high on it as we
enjoying
are, but yeah, I know you're liking it too, Iro. Just I feel like me and G are like,
Jill doubts your commitment.
well, we're the ones that are like, this is the best show of the season.
Yeah,
You know?
sure. Or maybe
so,
we're just more prone to hyperbolic statements.
That might be true too. It's good for radio.
Yes.
I mean, I like dad anime too much for Kakushigoto to be knocked off the list of best anime of the season for me, but I'll give it a go.
It's up there. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's one of those two. If we're gonna at this stage pick one, but yeah, maybe it'll just come down to which one finishes.
Yeah, good point.
All right, so I think that's gonna do it for this week's episode. We'll get to our housekeeping here. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or YouTube. That's pretty much it. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, stay safe out there, wash your hands. We'll add that to the housekeeping at the end. And we'll see everybody next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.